things are all right. I mean, it's organized. An organized slob.
Right.
But Picasso, all he had to do was sign his name and he got 300,000. Okay, this is the typewriter, which is very humorous, because I got this flash and I went to the recycle place and I got myself a typewriter and I threw it all in there, and of course this was written in the 20s here when the typewriter first came out, to live by the typewriter and die by the typewriter. Louis James Oliver, Jimmy Oliver. My friends call me James, or some people call me Louis.
Okay.
My daughter calls me Louis. I'm 73 years old now. I was born in December 17th, 1937, in a cold water flat. And the doctor had to come over to the house because there was a snowstorm. And I was born in a cold water flat on the Bronx, Mount Vernon, Westchester, Bronx, south side, borderline, on the border town. My grandfather, my mother's father, Mario Morano, had a barber shop. So everybody, when you're kids, when you grow up to 9, 10 years old, you work at the barber shop. So that's where you sweep the hair, and you make the hair cloths, and you fold everything, and you do all the necessary things to do. That was my first gig. And until I was like a little older, I don't know. Worked here a lot of years. And I was a shoe shine boy, that's right. I shined a guy's shoe shine boy. These guys were executives in Westchester County, New York, right? But they worked in Manhattan. And I wrote a book a little bit, and ain't published or nothing. But anyway, I had a line, and I was thinking about it. And I says, they come from Manhattan to come to Westchester to go. My grandfather's barbershop was the most immaculate Italian barbershop you ever knew. Very immaculate, clean. You had to keep that shit together. Anyway, I thought about when I say shine, sir, it was 15 cents. I carry my box, my little thing around in the waiting area. And I said to myself, I thought later in these years when I was writing this novelette or whatever, I said, they brought their shoes, the dirty Manhattan dirt, to Westchester so I could clean them up. I'll be somber about something. Now this photo here, this painting here, what happened to me, you see this? This is like a coffin to me. And I call it obituary, my obituary. I'm lying in a coffin, I'm out in the cosmos somewhere, and here we are. This is when I got involved in the Civil War stuff, because I didn't graduate, you see, from school. I was
Dyslexic?
not dyslexic. I just was kind of not paying attention because of the abuse that I was getting when I was a kid. Like I told you, I grew up old, and now I'm younger. Okay, this is called the Underground Railroad part. This here is the Cracker Jack box, and this tells you what patriotic emblems, which I got to finish. They're all over in here. And that's Ashley Wilkes. No. Gone with the Wind, right? It was called The Dove of Peace. I'll show it to you on the page. So what I do, okay, everything is built by hand. I whittle. I'm a whittler. So I do it that way. And here's that same thing, and I'm going to make it a double winger because back in the 80s I did sell one for quite a bit of money. I guess it started in my early 20s when I got to LA after I was out of the service. I got out of service, I was at 18, 19 years old, and I wanted to go to Vegas to be a gambler. Italians, what do you want? Then I went to L.A. I finally got up the courage to go to L.A. and become. I always wanted to be an actor. I studied in New York acting too a little bit, down in the Village.
Were you on stage anywhere?
Huh? Oh yeah, I did a lot of stage.
Oh yeah.
That's how I got kind of into the film business. I finally get to L.A. and you asked me about my artwork, and I got very involved in the art people, even though I was studying acting and got my break in '65 with a Leroy Jones play called Toilet Dutchman. There were 2 plays. Paul Winfield, Bob Dokey, Al Freeman, and they discovered me in 1965. Well, I had a very big ego. I mean, and I was younger, kind of. So, and then I got involved with these guys. You know, there's a place called Barney's Beanery, and all the actors and writers hung out there. Janis Joplin, Nicholson before he hit, scored. Harry Dean, Larry Bell, all these guys. Everybody knew Barney's. That was the place to go. Now, interesting thing about Barney Anthony, the owner, he had 365 Hawaiian shirts, and he always wore one a day, because there's 365 days to the year. It was always a different thing. And he would say, "Last call for alcohol," you know, about 10 to 2. And one other thing about him, during World War II, the vets would come in, you know, with their uniforms, and he'd give them free food, man. He was a cool dude. And my Uncle Johnny, who passed away last year, when I was a kid, he taught me how to build airplanes. You know, little models and stuff. So that's how I got into the airplane business. This is my family. Some are dead and some are alive. And that's my house, the house in Sicily. That's my Uncle John that raised me. He died last year on September 11th. Isn't that a trip? That was just a flash from the typewriter, you know, the one that was the typewriter that I got. And then I looked up Kerouac because I got an album on a CD, and that was kind of fun. I really enjoyed this. That's Miles. To me, that's Miles Davis. And, you know, I got these little lights that go on and off. Anyway, that's one of that. There's my daughter at 26.
What's her name?
Angela. And here she is later in Germany. She was 26 when we got together. For 14 years we didn't know where we were. I couldn't find her and she couldn't find me. And that's her, because she works at a store where she goes to Germany and stuff like that.
There's the infamous picture.
Oh yeah, there's the Lennon. That's me, with more hair. That's him. And supposedly my younger brother said there's other pictures. I'm in the Beatles book, but they got it all wrong. They say I'm a bodyguard. I wasn't the bodyguard. The story of John Lennon. As an incident that happened one night in March something, 1974. So, I was hanging at the Troubadour. There was Dan Tanner's on Santa Monica Boulevard, and then a Spanish joint, and then the Figaro, which was the folk thing of the thing. Well, supposedly, I was just hanging out. Tommy and the Smothers Brothers were there, and John Lennon and Harry Nilsson got a little blitzed on the side, because there were seats on the side, like a theater in a round, kind of. Well, for one moment I hear the crowd, because they were heckling, the crowd ran out to go get those guys, right? So I ran out into our alleyway, and there was Harry Nilsson, John Lennon, and May Pang, who I kind of knew. The crowd's behind me, and I crushed through the crowd, and we're in a parking area. And I said, "Hey, John, it's Louis." And he goes, "Louis?" And he grabbed me, and May says, "Get us asses out of here." So Harry Nilsson, me, John Lennon. I lived 3 minutes up the road on Ozetta Terrace, right off Sunset Boulevard, a little hillside. And I got them in there, Mays on the horn, trying to, and then people are finding out, Doug Weston's finding out that I got John Lennon at my little cottage there, my garret. Meanwhile, I had an upright piano, and they were playing the piano. It was all hippie time, you know, and colors and stuff like that. I didn't look at John Lennon as anybody except he could have been a guy from my hometown, man, and he was in trouble, and I was going to get his ass out of trouble. So I never talk about this. I haven't talked about this, especially on a camera. So I says, these guys are drunk. I think I'll cook them some hamburgers while they're playing the piano and doing their shucking and jiving. So I'm cooking them hamburgers, and then Johnny and I make it seem as I know the guy. I mean, we spent maybe an hour together after the hamburgers were cooked. Anyway, so they eat the hamburgers. We talk about things, and now, don't forget, they were blitzed. I was a little blitzed. People were trying to get to my place, and May's on the horn. So I fed them the hamburgers. They liked them, I thought. So the next night I go to my Italian restaurant called Dantana's, right next to the Troubadour. Now my buddy, who manages the Troubadour, Bobby Marchese, sitting at the bar, and I'm having my mozzarella marinara, and he says, "Hey Louie." I says, "Yeah." He says, "I hear the guys didn't like the hamburgers." And that was it. You know, that was Marchese's way of doing it. He was kind of stoic.